All right, so I'm super excited to get to talk to Emilie Spruill today. She and I converse over social media all the time. She is a local mom. She is also an esthetician and a natural beauty expert. But Emilie, the reason we're here talking today is a post you made on social media last week really got my attention. And you and I have talked a lot about this over the years. You've gone over 500 days now without alcohol. So, first of
Mhm.
all, thanks for being here. And tell us
Thanks.
why you decided to do that.
It's a good question. You were a little bit of an inspiration for me because I know we've kind of chatted back and forth just about our own like root cause healing journey, which is really what prompted this for me. I definitely drank a lot more in my 20s before I had met my husband, before I had kids. I did all the wild things that kids do when they're younger, young adults. But so I wasn't really making the decision based on like um I don't know how it was impacting my life in a negative way, like you would think that alcohol was. But for me, it was really, I'm just on this root cause healing journey of detoxing things like mold and heavy metals and pesticides and just environmental toxins that we've
Mhm,
been exposed to throughout out our entire life. We all have.
mhm.
Um, Anyways, I started working with a practitioner about a year and a half ago, and they didn't suggest that I cut out alcohol. I think I just realized that I had had one drink. It was a margarita, and I was out with some friends and my kids. I mean, I didn't even get a buzz. It wasn't like that. But the next day, I woke up and I was just feeling so anxious and kind of just down and really like the blues. I felt like a cloud was kind of following me. And a friend of mine, about a month prior to that, had said that she didn't drink anymore. So I think it was on my head that, like, some people just decide not to drink anymore for no particular reason. Anyways, I had talked about that on my stories on Instagram, and I wish I remember who specifically said this because it actually really did have a big impact on me. But it was someone that was like an acquaintance, and she said, if that was a food that was bothering you, that was making you feel really badly physically, you would just cut it out. I've cut out dairy, I've cut out gluten because I had to. Um, and so I don't know, that really hit me. I was like, I mean, that's exactly right. If I'm consuming something and it's making me feel a really certain way, and I've noticed this now multiple times, like just cut it out. And so that's what I decided to do. And I found an app to keep track. So it just kind of kept me encouraged. It's called NoMo. It's free, literally NOMO. And that's why I cut it out
And you feel better now. And it's about feeling better all day, every day, right? And you feel like
all the
that's
time.
yeah, been accomplished.
I mean, looking back on it, I think about my 20s, and I did spend a lot of time down. I mean, I didn't medicate or anything like that or get a diagnosis, but I know I had a lot of, lonely, sad, like just feels. And looking back on it, I wonder, like, if I took out this at one point, it was a pretty normal part of my life. And so if I had removed that, I just wonder if I would have felt differently or if my anxiety would have been, I never called it anxiety again. It wasn't like diagnosed type thing, but I definitely recognize that I feel in a funk when I was drinking alcohol. And also, I'll tell you this, I'm doing so much work detoxing, and I've learned a lot about how much your liver plays a role in that. I'm not a
Mhm.
doctor, but I'm on
Sure.
calls every week where I learn about it. And I think for me, it just made sense. Like, my liver is busy detoxing environmental toxins and things like I've mentioned. And I just think it didn't need the extra job of detoxing alcohol. So for me, it felt like I was doing my body a favor.
Mhm. Well, yeah, and I quit drinking. It'll be 2 years ago in May. And it's funny, and I'm sure you run into this. When you say someone offers you a drink somewhere and you go, "No, thanks," and people kinda go, "Oh, do you have a problem? Are you an alcoholic?
Yeah.
Are you recovering?" No, I just have chosen for health reasons that I don't wanna drink anymore, and I was in the same boat, just like you're describing. I started to
Yeah.
notice in the days after, I felt uncomfortable in my body, in my skin. I felt anxious. I
Hmm.
felt
Hmm.
easily annoyed. I was just
Hmm.
not at my best. I felt yucky and, like you said, like a cloud over you in the days after. And it wasn't like I was going out and, drinking a bunch.
It's not a hang.
No, it
Right.
was yeah, I had a margarita at a party last night, and then I just feel
Hmm.
down and uncomfortable and anxious and gross for days. And so I got to a point where I'm like,
Hmm.
"Well, why am I doing this?"
Why?
Yeah, and you know,
Yeah.
alcohol's very high in histamine, most of them are, and I
Mhm.
don't deal well with a lot of histamine. I have histamine issues, so I think that probably
Right.
played into it for me. So it got to a point where like the instant I would drink, I felt like uncomfortable and weird and dizzy and kind of like pressure in my head. And looking back, probably yeah, probably had something to do with histamine. I don't know. I know I didn't
And a
prefer.
lot of them I know you mentioned sugar to me, like back when
Yes,
I was talking about things that I was sensitive to, and I know a lot of alcohol does have high
that's
sugar.
right, and I definitely have had blood sugar issues in the past. So you're very right.
Mhm.
It could have very easily played into things, but, you know, was I gonna, like, go get a workup and a diagnosis to figure out why I couldn't have a glass of wine? No, it was just one of those things that I was like, "I'm not gonna do it
Yeah,
anymore," and I feel so much better. And it's
so
a
much better. I know for me, it was a lot of like replaying things that I said yesterday, like just kind of like, did I say something stupid? It was almost like second guessing things. But it's so funny because I feel like when you talk about like I had to cut out alcohol, it almost makes it sound like the problem was that you were getting intoxicated and
right.
doing something like that's not what I'm talking about. And I definitely have had those years of my life. That's not what I'm talking about. But for me, it would just be like, did I say something embarrassing? Like it was a form of like social anxiety, I think,
Mhm.
being inside my head. And that was really only happening, I noticed that like the day or two after I was drinking. And so it didn't make me feel good.
Well, and that almost has, like, an anxiety tone to it as well, to me,
Hmm.
you know, where you're
Hmm.
back thinking and questioning and not constructive, productive thoughts, certainly.
Right.
And
Right.
you know, I guess we both have children and, you know, the discussion of alcohol comes up. I have one teenager, so he's very young. He's 14. We're certainly not having that discussion right now. He's way too young for that. But I do think it's important also for your kids to understand you don't have to go out and drink to have a good time. And when they
Mm-mm.
see mom or dad or mom and dad or family members doing that, going, yeah, let's go out and have fun doing X, Y, and Z. And you don't have to drink. I think it's a good example to set as well for our children.
Yeah, definitely. And I love that, you know, we haven't talked really too much about our husbands, but my husband's really supportive of it. He hasn't completely cut out alcohol, but he just is not a big drinker. I think, again, like me, he lived years where there was more alcohol, but at this point in our life, we have three little kids, two businesses. It's just not our thing. But
Mhm.
he's been really supportive of it. And in fact, I mean, he has a designated driver for life. Like, there's just a lot of really fun benefits. I feel like sometimes my friends get a little bit more uncomfortable. Like, I don't want to say I get less invited to things, but I do think people kind of assume that I'm like not interested in having fun or, you know, couldn't go to a happy hour or something like that. Like, in the beginning, I would just go and I would drink like soda water or Pellegrino or whatever. I was thinking about alternatives in case you
Yeah.
asked,
Yeah.
but I constantly have one of these trendy things full of electrolyte water. I like the LMNT or whatever you call it. So I'm constantly drinking water. Um, my husband though has introduced me to all of the like fun. Literally, I think he's just gotten so supportive that he'll go to Total Wine and he'll bring me home. So I brought some things to share with you. Like literally, there's an alternative for everything. I never had gone to the store myself until New Year's Eve day,
Mhm.
and or was it New Year's Eve day? I don't know. For some reason, I was going to be at a happy hour with neighbors or something, and so I wanted to have a couple of options. Oh no, my husband's birthday is on New Year's Eve, and so I went to see if they had any non-alcoholic beer. And they don't just have like one or two like they used to, like O'Doul's. I remember when I was a bartender, but no, they have like an aisle of it. It's wild. So
Wow. I
this
had
is
no
like
idea.
I'm not a big beer drinker anyways, but this is like a Brooklyn brewery special non-alcoholic special effects
Mhm.
Pilsner. There's
Wow.
blogs written about it. I feel like some of them, if you really get into the like clean ingredients, which is important to me, some of them probably wouldn't pass my test, but for as little as I would, you know, be partaking in it, I think it's okay. I haven't found a good non-alcoholic vodka, but which is what I used to drink whenever I liked to drink a cocktail. But like this brand is pretty good. It's called Monday, and
Okay.
the labels are pretty. They have gin, whiskey. If you really like a margarita, like I have some friends, another friend with a histamine issue, and she's like, I just can't. She cannot tolerate histamine. She gets a rash. But this is called Ritual. Ritual zero proof tequila alternative. And this makes like an amazing margarita if
Okay.
you want to just participate. So if it's something that you were kind of wanting to entertain, there are actually a lot of options to. Sometimes it's nice to just not even explain my choices, but to just have like a pretend cocktail and feel like I'm a part of the party and I don't have to even have a conversation about it. You know what I mean?
So yeah, I did not know that they had all these non-alcoholic options out there, but I do a lot of like sparkling water with citrus and like I added a little beet juice just for color there. Yes, beet juice tastes good. I promise. It really does. But there's so many, I feel like you can really get creative with the mocktails. And I mean, if you put it in a fancy glass and it feels fun and festive, especially around the holidays, you can add some pomegranate seeds or some rosemary and you have the red and green and there's just a lot you can do. Yeah, yeah.
And I feel that's what I was going to say. My husband, I think it's sweet that he's supportive of it and he likes to like, he thinks that I want that. But to be honest, I just don't even miss it. I really don't at this point, which I'm super thankful for. I definitely want to recognize too that I understand that some people have a real difficult time setting something aside like that. And alcoholism runs in my family. So I definitely don't think that it's as easy for everyone. But for me, it was just a choice. It was something that wasn't serving me. And so I decided to stop. I think in the beginning, maybe it was a little bit more difficult just to be consistent with anything. Like working out consistently is difficult. Waking up earlier is difficult. But once you create a habit, and that's why I personally like to track it with the day app, because it kept me motivated, frankly.
I like that. And yeah, and I don't know that when I gave it up, I don't know that I like thought, oh, I'm never going to drink again, or I started on that path. I was just like, this doesn't make me feel good. So I'm not going to do it today or tomorrow or the next day. And then all of a sudden it's like been almost 2 years and you're right. I don't miss it at all. And I feel like I did some research before we came on. And I think just like you said, it is hard for a lot of people to set it aside. And I think a lot of things are that way, whether it's sugar or wheat and I had health problems and had to set sugar aside and wheat aside. That it wasn't necessarily like I woke up one day and was like, oh, I want to be that annoying gluten-free person. Right. Yeah. But I had to, like my body sent me so many signals. I had to, but I was doing some research and we had talked earlier. We both follow Dr. Daniel Amen, who's a psychiatrist out of California. And he really studies the brain and really puts out a lot of information about ways to keep your brain healthy. Because he says, if your brain's healthy, you're just going to have a better life. And so he did a story actually at a video today on Instagram about alcohol. And he was saying that, and I didn't know this, the American Cancer Society has really come out against any alcohol consumption. He was talking about a study. The Canadian Center on Substance Abuse and Addiction said just recently that no amount of alcohol is safe. Dr. Amen even called it poison. He says they've done studies out of Spain that it decreases the white matter in your brain. I don't know about you, but I don't need to be decreasing anything in my brain.
I'm trying to repair that all with my memory issues, which is a whole nother conversation. Totally. There's another one a friend of mine was telling me about. His name is Andrew Huberman. Have you heard about him? He has Huberman Lab on Instagram. He's a PhD also. Neuroscience at Stanford. And I know he talks a lot about alcohol and its effect on your brain. It's actually really interesting if you think about like the whole topic of brain health, which nobody teaches you that. You probably don't have a neurologist in your life unless, something's drastically wrong. But for me, I was having not just what was brain fog. Like you've had 5 kids? 5 kids. I've had 3. And so for a long time we were pregnant or breastfeeding. And I definitely blamed a lot of it on just mommy brain or pregnancy brain or breastfeeding brain. But my baby's 5 now, my youngest. And I started to realize like I'm having cognitive decline. Like I almost saw a neurologist for what honestly I thought was possibly Alzheimer's, like early Alzheimer's. Nobody else probably knew it. My husband recognized it and I knew it. And so that's kind of what started me on this root cause path. I have a friend that lost her mom to Alzheimer's and I asked her and she pointed me towards a root cause practitioner and really everything changed for me then. Anyways, I realized that just wasn't what was happening and that a lot of that was actually reversible. And so a lot of those things, like I mentioned, like mold, Lyme, Bartonella, like different co-infections, even things like EBV, things that you were exposed to when you were young, but they still live in your body dormant. They can cause a lot of those type of symptoms. And for me, so knowing all of the work that I've put in to try to help my brain to be healthier, to read that by Dr. Amen, however you say it, Dr. Huberman, these experts on neuroplasticity, and to think like that I could potentially be doing something to reverse that, all that work that I'm doing, like it's just not worth it to me.
Totally agree. Yeah. Also, I just noticed today that Danica Patrick, she's a former race car driver. She's currently healing from breast implant illness. And so she said she had now cut back to once a week drinking, twice a week if she really had to. So I don't know that you can say there's a trend out there, but I think that there are a lot of people today going, something's missing in my puzzle of health. Let's look at alcohol. And I think that's fair to do. And it's also one of those things, I think, cut it out for a month, 2 months. It's January. A lot of people do dry January. So I think it's apropos that we're talking about it right now. But yeah, it's something that I think when you do cut it out, if you notice you feel better day in and day out, then it's probably worth it to you long term.
Totally. And that goes the same, like I'm an esthetician. So with skin, I always say one of the easy swaps that you can make is cut out dairy, see if it decreases your oil production, see if your skin clears up, see if your skin feels less bumpy, but give it a month, like be really consistent for a month. If it doesn't make any difference, then you can walk away from that and move on to something else. But like for a lot of people, that's just a really simple, inexpensive change that you can make. Or, with breastfeeding, I went through that with breastfeeding with dairy. A doctor said like it's totally anecdotal and there is no link between breastfeeding and food sensitivity in babies, but my babies all had colic and they would scream bloody murder. I cut out dairy and it completely stopped. And other moms told me that. So I definitely am a believer of like, try it and see if you can see if there's an impact.
Yeah. I don't personally eat dairy because I get the acne around here. I mean,
inflammation.
Yeah. So I like the taste of dairy. I just don't like walking around with zits and lines at my age. It's like, can I have one or the other? Not both, but
no, I told my husband, I think it was my husband. I said this the other day. I'm like, if there was a comet, like God forbid, but approaching the planet, like if I was in one of those movies where we knew the end was near, like I'm going down on a pizza diet. Like that's just it. But until then, I'm not going to live like that because it doesn't make me feel good.
Totally. Yeah. No, I'm heading straight for the donut shop personally. But if you want your pizza, I totally get it. But I think this is something that it's easy for us to look at as a society, to say, okay, if I'm not completely healthy, if I'm having some issues that I just can't explain or can't really get rid of, to look at alcohol. And I heard a holistic practitioner, a holistic doctor that I've followed for years, said one day, I'm perfectly fine with my patients having alcohol as long as they are completely healthy. So don't have any health issues, like 10 out of 10 energy levels, sleep well, perfect weight. And I thought, who fits into those parameters? Right?
And we have a toxic bucket, right? So like when your toxic bucket is overfilled, we have an issue right now with our house where we're doing some mold inspection. I think it's not as bad as I thought it was last week, which thank goodness. I remember thinking like, this is the first time that I maybe would have wanted to drink because it was a really stressful week, but we got good news today, thank goodness. But anyways, I've been having that conversation a lot too. Like it's a toxic bucket. So things affect people differently. Like the same harmful thing can affect two people really differently. And it all depends on how does your body detox, which a lot of us have issues with methylation and detox. Again, I'm not a practitioner. I've just learned. And so there's that, but also if you like what the inspector said was your family has already made a lot of non-toxic choices. And so the way that you're living your life, probably you have a lower toxic load. And so even if you were exposed to something, you're probably not going to be as symptomatic as maybe some other people are that are exposed to the same thing. So I think that's completely right. Like what the doctor said about if you're doing all of the other things right. And on that note though, don't you find, I feel like whenever I would drink, I would also have issues sleeping. It's so funny because
yes.
alcohol makes you sleepy, but then I wouldn't be able to sleep well when I did have it. I forgot about that.
Yes, and I think sleep is one of the main tenets of health for me personally. I mean, I just don't feel as well if I don't get a good night's rest.
Yeah.
I've had 5 children. I've been up for the last 14 years, you know? No, actually, I mean,
Yes.
I have a 3-year-old now, so he's been sleeping through the night for a while. But you notice, I mean, you just don't feel as well when you're not getting that kind of sleep. And you're right. Alcohol certainly affects your sleep. It can affect your hormones. We know all hormones affect each other in the body. And so that gets to be a point of concern for a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, I was just thinking that about you yesterday because I ordered my vitamin C serum from you. You also
Oh,
sell skincare, and so I'm gonna be yes,
best.
yes.
Love
I'm literally on the
it.
verge of being out in the next 48 hours. So
Oh,
I'm gonna be
help
needing
is on
that.
the
Yes, yes. So I'll reach out to you for that. But yeah,
way.
I know. I mean, you post a lot on social media, and you're always like a wealth of information as far as really being cognizant of what you put in your body, on your body, what you're around, what you're exposed to. And I think it's important. It's important for our kids. So my hat is off to you. You're doing a great job.
Thank you. And you too. You keep inspiring me. And I'm so excited to hear all the content that you have because you're going to do more things like this. I will
Yes.
be watching and learning. And that's why I tell people, I'm like, just share what you're learning. Everybody has some, you know, you don't have to be an expert to like say, hey, I saw this on, this doctor's podcast or whatever, and share what you're learning. I feel like we all benefit from each other. So
Totally. And what makes a difference in your life? What's helping you health wise or,
well, and
just
really everything, like I said about the breastfeeding, like everything that I've learned, it's like we learn it from other people. It's like we're
Mhm,
just sharing,
mhm.
which I think is so cool.
Right. Right. All right. Well, Emilie, thank you so much. So good to talk to you. And we'll be
Thanks.
talking soon. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, have a good one.